So I'm going to record this. We can post it in our YouTube channel for folks who didn't weren't here tonight. Um, I am resonating with the video, and I'm resonating with uh, things that Jesselyn said earlier around, uh, doulas actually being real doulas, doulas actually giving good care. And I think that it's, where in this time when the society that we're living in is crumbling and we're watching all the crumbling, and it's very debilitating and it's very distressing, it's very depressing, um, and it's really important that we do what we do. Now, someone there are always people in any great movement or time in humanity, there are always the people who are called to be witnesses, and doulas are one of those groups of people who get to be called witnesses. And the big temptation is to not get sucked into the Borg collective that is already killing people. And that's not even an exaggeration. We know this country has the worst outcomes for moms and babes than any other industrialized country. Okay, so that's one of the things that has been proven. It is in textbooks. So that's why, we have the government jumping around trying to incorporate doulas into the Borg collective. Anybody who's not seen Star Trek Next Generation might not know what I'm talking about. But so if you need me to explain that to you, tell me that you need me to explain that to you. Otherwise, I'm going to keep talking. So I think one of the biggest fights that we have, one of the big fights I know I'm personally having is, the kind of midwife that I want to be means that I don't go to school, to a meek accredited school. And because I have 44 years of seeing people have babies. And I dare to believe that that matters and that that counts and that I know stuff. And I'm not saying that there's not more things that I'd be willing to learn, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm willing that I do know. Um, I have having a big problem with bending myself into patriarchal boxes to be accepted. So I'm worrying about that. And seeking to find a way to get this done where I can do it in my own self, in my own integrity. It's so interesting. All this like pushing, oh, you got to go to college, and you got to have this specific mindset of uh, you have this certain mindset that gets the A's, and you write the paper, and you have to write. You can't just write the paper. You have to write it in a certain way that indoctrinates you into a certain kind of thinking in your left brain always. And even in your creative writing class, you're writing an outline for the thing that you're creating, which is like the opposite of being creative, right? As opposed to just sitting and writing, you're planning what you're writing. So even with having a child, I mean, just the most important things around eating about having a baby, other than diet and exercise, which are the most important things, is flights of fancy. The mom has to feel safe. She needs time to daydream, to think of her little baby's face as opposed to waiting for the sonogram picture, right? To connect with that baby so that the person carrying the baby, is the person who knows the most about that baby. That's the baby's person. That's the baby's mother. That's the baby's mother. So we're looking at these other people, many of whom will never birth a baby with their bodies. The person with the baby inside of them is looking at a person who probably never have a baby in their body and asking them what's going on inside of them. Do we not see how kind of torque that is? As opposed to midwives who are just really curious about going on with inside of the pregnant person's body and will ask them and will care about them and will trust what a birthing person, a pregnant person, uh, uh, or a woman will be having to say about what's going on in their body. That's the height of feminism, in my opinion. We are caring about what's happening inside of a female person's body, and that we treat it with as much import as all the statistics from all the textbook. We treat it with even more import because that's the real lived experience of that person carrying that baby. It's very stressful. Priscilla and I have had two births within the past 8 days, 9 days, something like that. And the first one was a beautiful butter birth. It really was just butter. And because Alta Bates is trying to clean up their act, I don't expect it to be forever, but they are trying to get the baby friendly designation for their hospital. There's a group in Alta Bates that's trying to get baby friendly uh, designation. And so there's a little they've lightened up a little bit. So basically, client number one was able to come in. She had a really nice brisk labor. She was able to birth her baby. Lots of applause and cheers. And she was proud of herself because she didn't think she found she was working with a concierge nurse midwifery practice. So she called a specific practice. A specific midwife from the practice came to Alta Bates to deliver her baby with her. And that's great. If you can, if you can afford that, if you can afford the concierge nurse midwife practice, you can have that birth. Then we had another client who was, lovely. She was not all that excited about eating. Why? Oh, I to this day I don't understand being a pregnant person and not wanting to eat everything in life because I could not. When I was pregnant, I ate out of house and home. If my husband didn't watch his plate, if he walked away from his plate, he would come back. His plate was empty. So it's one of the things I've struggled with as a doula. The pregnant women who don't want to eat. How can you not want to eat? Anyway, I'm working on that still, 44 years later. Um, at first, this client had midwifery care. We're at Kaiser Redwood City. And at first, there were midwives in attendance. And things were very, very chill and relaxed. She came in feeling that she wanted to push to nurse midwife, and the nurse in the room said, "Oh, you can stand up and push." We were both like, "Oh my goodness, she can stand up and push. That's great." Excuse me, I'm playing Splenda in my tea. Um, and she pushed for a good long time. She pushed, it was like, what, 8 hours? But not solidly for 8 hours. She didn't push for 8 hours. She had breaks in between. She was eating, she was going to the bathroom, she was doing all of this stuff. Sadly, we got to a point where there was a shift change. And shift changes are always stressful for me, especially if you've had like the dream team working with their client up to that point, because it is kind of a patriarchal thing where the new group coming in has a hard time accepting what the first group was doing. And this is something that I see time and time again. So they're going to want to, the new people are going to come in and want to switch up what's been happening before they got there, right? So mom is pushing, baby's coming down, no problem on the monitor, no nothing. They the for some reason I don't know what was exactly going on because there was nothing untoward in the labor, but suddenly we had this young male obstetrician in the room. And I took a deep breath because, oh dear. Suddenly the midwives disappeared. Suddenly, young male doctors in the room, full of no knowledge or understanding or care or compassion, really. But he had a big smile on his face. He was like a used car salesman. Like he knew he should smile. So he was doing that. I think he practiced when he went home at night how to do it. Um, but he wasn't really like, and he made it really clear, at least to me, that he was very uncomfortable with how long she had been pushing. And he his much said so. And it's hard when you're the doula because you understand the importance of when doctors are saying stuff like that. At least I hope you do. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to share the story, because how midwives and birth workers have learned things for thousands of years is that we all tell each other our stories of things that have happened with our clients. That's how we learn. We don't wait until they put it in a textbook. We learn from each other. Traditionally, it's women talking to other women, like here in the circle. That's how we learn stuff. That's how I learned all the important things that helped me be a good doula. I learned at the feet of older birth workers who were women. Okay. So here we were. And I was very clear that what the doctor was saying, when the doctor says he's very uncomfortable, we usually don't have people pushing that long. I reminded him, other people reminded him too, that she hasn't been pushing for 9 hours straight, for 8 hours straight. She would push a little bit, take a break, push a little bit, take a break, go to the bathroom, all that stuff. Her energy was pretty good. The baby, she's doing good pushes that move the baby every time she moves. So there was a series of conversations, and then all of a sudden the client's on, it needs an epidural. She didn't want an epidural. So we put it off for a while. All of these conversations that have nothing to do with what's going on in her body, she's getting tired now. She's getting tired. She started to feel warm and she started to feel tired. So she accepted getting the epidural because she's getting tired. They said, "Oh, but you won't need a pitocin. Just you can get to rest a little bit with the epidural and then have build up your energy and have your baby." Lo and behold, in a few more hours, she had pitocin as well, because now she's really pushing too long. They're really uncomfortable. They are really uncomfortable. They're not saying anything's wrong with her baby. Hear that. Young doctor man was very uncomfortable. So we got to do something because he's uncomfortable. Get him a blankie and his rubber ducky and help him feel better rather than leave our client alone. But no, we're going to make him feel better. So this family, for some reason, well, this is to put in cultural context. This is an Iranian family, a Persian family, which is a different thing. There's a there's a difference between a Persian person and an Iranian person historically, emotionally. So this family is very matriarchal. So the mother-in-law, the mothers-in-laws and mothers have a lot of say, as in a lot of cultures of color. And the mom-in-law was a person who worked in healthcare herself, and terrified. Like she was literally sitting in the room like this and holding her head and looking up to God and being very distressed. I put my arms around her several times trying to help her center herself and calm herself. But she didn't want to be centered. She wanted her daughter's labor over. And she said so. I want this to be over. No, I can't do this. Like, you can leave the hospital. It's not about you. I didn't say this to her because, she would have taken my head off. I'm so sure. But, it's really not about you. It's like it's about you letting your daughter have her child. So, of course, once you give a little baby boy an epidural and Pitocin, what's going to happen? What does somebody think? It's a question. What happens when you give little baby boys a Pitocin and epidural often?
There's heart rate issues.
Right. So even though this mama had been pushing for 9+ hours, the baby's was fine until the Pitocin got in there. The baby was holding its own during the epidural, but then once you put that Pitocin in there, now the baby's heart rate's all sketchy, sketchy, sketchy. Then young Dr. Mann decided that the mom needed to have a cesarean. That was his recommendation. She needs to have a cesarean. I recommend a cesarean. Mommy didn't want a cesarean. She said so. All these people were surrounding my client's bed. Several nurses, a nurse midwife, and young Dr. Mann, all standing around this woman, and even the husband was starting to chime in, and the mom was already on board because grandma just wanted it all to be over. The dad was just scared. The dad was just following, that person with the white coat was saying that he recommended it, so of course we have to do it. They're all surrounding this poor mama's bed and they're all talking to her at the same time. And I was just watching her shrink. Like she was surrounded. She was on little girl on the schoolyard. There was a bunch of bullies surrounding her and she was trying to figure out how to escape. So your doula mentor teacher person did what I do because I just couldn't take it. I came over close to her and I put my hands on either side of her ears and I blocked them all out. I held her head and I blocked them all out. And I got real close to her and I just said, take a nice deep breath. Listen to me, take a nice deep breath. And everybody in the room was insulted. Except the dad. The dad was actually, I think he was very grateful. I talked to him afterwards. I didn't check in with mom-in-law that much. She was happy after the baby was born, so there's no reason to worry about her. She was okay ultimately. But I was like, one step at a time. It is your decision, I said to my client. This is your decision. You heard what everybody said. You heard doctor, you heard the nurses, midwives, you heard them, and you get to have some time to decide what you want to do. And I asked them, can you all leave the room? Can we have 5 minutes? And they were, "Oh, okay." They left the room. For her to have some time, like she was crying, and they're like, "Why are you crying? Why are you crying?" Like, how abusive is this crap? And I said, "You have your tears. You get to have your tears." It's like, and it's not like I haven't had to do this way too many times before, but you're having to remind those people in the white coats that this person in the bed is a human being. And when human beings are hurt and confused, they cry. I guess that was not in the textbook, so they don't know about it. Their tears, there are chemicals in tears that help normalize brain chemistry. We cry to save our lives. Crying is important. That's why we need to let our boys and young men cry so they don't grow up to be numb assholes driving women insane with their lack of feeling. So I'm like, when everybody came back into the room, my client said she wants to try to push for another half hour. They had given her the wonderful alternative of either a C section or vacuum extraction. Just your choice, mama. She didn't want either. She said she decided that she wanted to try to push for another half hour. And then if there's not significant progress, that she would agree to the vacuum extraction. We talked all about it. I talked about it with the dad. I took him out in the hallway. The doctor got all in our conversation. The doctor was trying to listen to our conversation, came all into the conversation, to put his 2 cents in, and that's fine. Whatever. And he's like, well, we're all on team mom. Like, really? Did you see her crying? We're on team mom? Really? I don't want you on my team. Like, I'm on team mom. And I'm like, how whatever happens today, it is important for the mom to feel like she had some agency in it. That's the difference between a trauma and a not trauma. Even if she has a cesarean, if she legitimately chose that, there's nothing to be traumatized about. It was her choice, it's her actual choice, not that she was pushed into it. I do not believe that I absolutely don't believe that that gentleman found that that was very important. What was important was how he was feeling, and his like, we let her push longer than I've ever seen anybody push. Okay, but she's okay. So you're learning something. You're out of medical school and you actually are learning something today. Similar, but not exactly like what midwife Ina May was talking about in the video that we saw. Seeing something that you never saw before in the midwifery world. And that the mom can be okay, and that the baby can be okay, and that you don't have to worry, be freaked out about liability, and you got to jump in now because all those crazy ass midwives were letting this woman push all that time. And I'm so sure that those midwives got a talking to. I, I think there's a couple of midwives over there at Kaiser who's in trouble. So magically, a wonderful new midwife showed up, lovely Asian midwife. And she really was like, gonna get this mom to push. I think they, I I am assuming, I don't know for a fact, but I am assuming that there was conversations at the nurse's station and they found this wonderful midwife person and they said, go scare that baby out of their mother's body because in their way, they're trying to help. So we're going to get the rock star midwife up in there and she's going to be like one of those people like, push, push, get mad at the baby, get mad at the baby. I'm like, what do you mean get mad at the baby? Get mad like it's the baby's fault that the doctor is not happy with the rhythm with which the mother pushes and how long it's taking. The mama's making steady progress. The babe went from 0 station to 1 station to 2. The baby's moving down. What's the problem? Anyway, so Rockstar Midwife was basically almost yelling at the client, push, 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 push. Baby came down like another centimeter or so. And with all of that, the mom gets so tired. She's so tired. She's so exhausted. The baby's starting to have issues with the heart on the monitor. More again. They gave her half hour. The half hour was up. She went in to have the vacuum extraction. If the vacuum extraction didn't work, they wanted to have the vacuum extraction done in the operating room because if the vacuum extraction didn't work, they were going to C-section her. I give her kisses and hugs. They put the booties on her husband, little cap and gown on him. They send her out. I send her out with tears and prayers. Grandma goes to sit in the waiting room, which I was very grateful for. I had a good cry because I understand the importance of tears and brain chemistry. Said prayers for my client, asked for God's protection on her and her baby and her husband, and even grandma. And Priscilla and I waited. We hung out because we had been told that whether she had a vacuum extraction or whether she had a C-section or not, that they would be back in the same room. They bring them back to the same room, which not all hospitals do. So we just sat there and baby was delivered by vacuum extraction. And there was great rejoicing. Right? Beautiful little boy. Don't have the stats on him, like his weight and all that stuff. I'll find that out. It really wasn't the most important thing to me in the moment. He was well. Mommy was well. Mommy got to push her baby out of her body, albeit with the help of the vacuum. She did not have to have major abdominal surgery. She does have a little boy who had a really bad experience. The vacuum extraction is not fun for the baby. Yanks their little head, yanks their neck, their back. So I made sure to send her information about cranial sacral therapy and to remind her, if he has any problems with breastfeeding, if there's any issues, to let me know. We'll talk through it. Doctor comes in, baby's brought into the room. Everybody's all happy. Everybody takes pictures of the doctor. I made sure to take pictures of the doctor in case they wanted to do something later. But pictures of the smiley ass doctor. He's so happy now because he doesn't have to be uncomfortable anymore. He's not uncomfortable. The baby's born. This baby didn't even have a cone head. No cone head. So this really sat on my heart this really sat on my heart since that this birth. Uh, I am proud of my actions, and I know I get away with a lot of stuff because I got the gray hair. So, what I wanted to, I think I wanted to tell you this story because again, it's a tremendous learning opportunity. Um, I want my doulas that I train to not be doulas that sit in the corner while things are happening to their clients, as much as the client will allow. This client wanted a natural birth. If you have a client who didn't know or has not made that commitment, then you don't step in codependently and make a decision for her. But this client did not want what was happening to happen to her. And even though I went with it was my instinct to cover her ears. I personally, the more I think about that, the more I kind of love myself. I kind of think, so I'm sorry, you're a sweet doula. Um, it's always it's a balancing act, like wanting to protect your clients. I mean, I do this work because I love women. I love them. And what was happening to her was not right. And that was the most least offensive way to the patriarchy that I could step in for her. So I did that. And so as you're working with clients, you will find your way around that. But I do think it's important that we're not the doulas that stand in the corner and watch our clients get raped. It's our job to educate them so that they know before they get into the hospital what the scenario is, to acquaint them with the corporatization of birth that is so rampant in our country. And it's unique to this country. It doesn't happen in other places the same way at all. Jesselyn's done a lot of research on how birth is done in this country, and she was appalled, as well she should be, because she's a person with a heart. So, and then after all of that is done and after the baby is born, it's our job to step in with whatever healing the family needs from their birth experience, whether it's just postpartum herbs because the mama had a butter birth and her little yoni's a little puffy and uncomfortable, and we give her the lovely herbs so she can soak her yoni and feel better, or we recommend craniosacral. And we need to be the ones to know that you don't just send the baby home after being sucked out with the vacuum without any follow up. We know that. And we don't have to wait until there's some study to tell us to do that. Our ancestors knew that. All of our ancestors had ways to love up little newborn babies' bodies when we were born crooked in their mama's pelvises and all the other stuff that little newborns would do, not to mention the shenanigans of this young doctor who has not submitted before the goddess. That is the problem in birth, man. We got these folks who have not just been in awe of the majesty of the goddess at work. They have not allowed themselves to be humble before God Almighty. That if they had that humility within them, it would be so much easier in birth. It'd be so much easier for birthing people, so much easier for women, so much easier for the poor dads and partners who are just terrified. And it gets to the point where the whole family, rather than gearing up for this beautiful, blessed event, they all just want it to be over. Can it just be over? Welcome to the world, little one. That's what we do to our babies. So some people would have said that your teacher stepped out of bounds. I don't think so. But I open it up now for your feelings and questions and comments. And what do you think? Do you think that I stepped out of bounds? Let me know.
Well, I love that you covered her ears because I really think of us as like you said, there's only so much we can do, but we can do our like if our physical efforts in terms of like supporting the labor itself are being obstructed, we can also be psychic guardians. And I feel that that's what you were doing. Like you were helping her recenter and like tune out what was essentially just becoming like abusive noise. um so yeah, maybe I missed something else, but I don't see that as stepping out of bounds at all. And I wish more doulas did take more time to get to know their clients, to get to that point of trust and access.
Yep.
Because I think doulas sit in the corner because they've only met their client once or twice and they don't know this person and the person doesn't know them, and there might be like camaraderie, but there isn't the deep trust that we get to establish in our practice of the extended prenatal engagement.
Exactly.
So yeah, to me that's like that's what a doula does. And I think I'm imagining you met with this family plenty of times ahead of time.
Yep.
And I still do education with clients, and it's like I really want them to know that I believe in them and I believe in their baby and I believe in birth. And what I don't believe in is all the shenanigans. And I think that's also something that we get to do because of how we do our education, is to say like, because people come to us so like anxious and afraid, or like this grandmother, like we just want to get through the tough part and that part be over and it not be scary. And it's like transition can be scary, transformation is scary, being oriented to parenthood can be scary, but like that's not because of you or because of birth or because of your physiology. It is this big powerful thing, but it's scary because we've lost that psychic guardianship, and we've lost like so much of the fear is based on people hearing other people's stories, but other people's stories aren't about birth. Other people's stories are about the clinical management of birth. So
Exactly.
it's like people have really, like, I'm glad your client did attune to what you were saying and, ask for her extra time and take a pause before getting totally railroaded, because it's like, I think birthing people are struggling to believe that they can have what they want,
Yep.
because I heard this, I heard this, I heard this. And it's kind of like the textbooks. It's like, well, it's like you're confusing these people's experiences for what birth can be. What these people's experiences are is clinical management in the United States.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's like I'm always trying to discern that, so that when we are in the room in a moment like the one you had, the trust is there of like, this isn't actually about you. Like, we're navigating this right now, but like the problem is not in you or your baby or your body. Like, the problem is all of this. And I want that trust to happen for all of our clients so that they can receive that care and get grounded in it and make a decision, as opposed to like, oh, birth is scary and traumatic and it had nothing to do with like the care I received. So I feel like you did everything in your duty and in your power, and it sounds like they would have had a very different experience if you weren't there. And that's the other piece too, right? Like, I was just counseling a doula who was sad that her client decided to go for an induction, and she supported her as best as she could. And I think that person did have a C-section. I was like, yeah, well, had you not been there, would she have felt any kind of agency over her choice? Like, at least you informed her. Like you did something. And now, like, now that's hers to carry and her choice to grapple with until she feels at peace with it. Because what would have, like, who knows what would have happened had you not been there and had you not had those prenatals and had you not been in the room.
Exactly.
And I think for doulas, it can be hard when something does go shenanigans wise, whether it's vacuum or a preventable C-section. It's like hard not to internalize it and like question ourselves. But that's because we're not seeing the alternate reality where that person had Pitocin and an episiotomy and who knows what else, right? So it's like we never, it's so much of the role is harm reduction, which sucks. But it's not harm reduction because birth is pathological. It's harm reduction because the care is pathological.
And it's a choice between do we hurt the mother or do we hurt the baby? And that's one of the things that the dad was like overwhelmed with. Like, what kind of choice is this? We get to hurt the baby or we get to hurt the mother. Those are our choices. And I said, no, there's a third choice. There's a choice for everybody to calm down. There's a choice of actually having a bathtub in the room as opposed to a shower that only sprayed cold water on the mom. Big old Kaiser. No bathtubs in the birthing rooms. And the shower did not shower really warm water, which is what the birthing person needs. A good hot bath will do the same thing as an epidural without any side effects. Right? So the choices are stacked against the mother's choices, the mother's desires, the mother's instinct. This is a woman who was even learning her instinct. She didn't know what her instinct was. She was coming to grips with it. And when she asked for that half hour, she was the firmest and most adult that I've seen her in the whole time I've known her. Then let me mention that the nurse in the room laughed hysterically when she asked for the half hour. That was professional. Did you want to say some more, Jocelyn?
Just that I appreciate that you're thinking about like the dynamics in the room and what people are bringing to it. And I think that's also the gift of the doula is to see, like, even though that doctor was probably full of shit, like you were able to see through his smile, you know, like, and in a way that is a form of compassion too, because it doesn't like justify his actions, but it's like, this is a child who has been trained to do this thing, and that's where all his self-worth and sense of security comes from, which is a whole nother bag of worms. That's just horrendous to think about. But especially also thinking about the father and his fears. I mean, the last birth I did, we had to transition from the birth center, and the mom was a doula, so their family had a very like advocacy approach because they'd seen it. She'd served more families than I had. She served like 70 or 80 families. And I remember when we got into the hospital and the nurse was just like spilling iodine everywhere and like just like frantic, weird energy. I remember the dad, and we're all still friends, and he was like, I'm not okay. He just was like, hold on, like, this is not okay. I'm feeling really freaked out now. I feel like I've been trained to hate this, and I hate it. Like, I don't like it here. And he just like kind of stopped the room, and I was like, your feelings are valid, and it is very different than where we just were at the birth center. You're right. It's a totally different thing. So thank you for speaking up. Let's take a minute without anyone in the room and like recenter and just like have some time. He needed to talk to his wife is what needed to happen. But it's like, I think that's the other skill that you bring to all of us is like, who is in the room and what are they bringing, even if they're not the provider or the person laboring, because all of that factors in too. And I think that's also just like what's missing from the recognition of the doula role, like
Right.
the psychic guardianship, but also the like supreme effort and skill required to basically be like spiritually managing a room full of cats with one laboring woman or birthing person in it. Like it's like it really is that way. So yeah, I always appreciate hearing your stories because it reminds me of the powers that we do have, even when it seems like everything is stacked against the outcome that the family wants.
And it's always very interesting witnessing that the doctor is the most frightened person in the room. He was terrified. And what that looks for in a dysfunctional person, specifically dysfunctional male person, that sticking your chest out thing, that's because you're scared. And does he have reason to be scared? Maybe. I mean, that length of pushing is not typical, but it was not just pushing, pushing, pushing for all that time.
Yeah.
But he is taught with recipes in his head. He is taught to protocol, and we were out of protocol. So he was like, warning, warning, Will Robinson, danger, danger, danger.
Yeah.
That's what he believes. That's what he's been taught. His
And
family a lot of money to put his ass through school. I know they did.
yeah. And he was young, you say?
Yeah. Well, now, everybody, I'm the oldest one in the room all the time.
Yeah. But I do think
He's in his, for sure, and then he's in his 30s.
like you said, if there's like a young person who hasn't had a baby yet, or if they don't have the capacity to do that because they don't have a uterus, it's like, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is when I've had the opportunity to be in casual social conversation with maternal health specialists, including OBs, if they're very experienced, like near retirement and a male, or if they've had babies themselves or could, the ones that I've had, in not in the clinical space, like it's like later or in a social setting, they choose home births.
Right.
Like they choose home births because they know about the fear and how that affects the risks. So like literally like the maternal fetal like advanced specialists that you only go to when there's really a problem, like those are the women I've spoken to are like, oh yeah, I had my babies at home. Which it's always just such a trip to me. So sometimes I still wish regardless of their sex, I just wish that medical students had to have like a year of home birth shadowing or something before they could even be a doctor. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but like,
They should all be they should all get to be doulas before they get to be doctors.
yeah. But I don't know if you're seeing I don't remember his name. Who's that guy that's getting featured all over Instagram talking about this? And he's like, 60% of our training is in surgery. Of course, we're gonna hit it with a hammer.
Doctors.
And yeah, but I'm glad that that's going viral because as frustrating as it is, because elders and especially Black and brown birth workers have been talking about this for eons.
Right.
At the end of the day, when you get a white male OB saying we're doing it wrong, that's when it picks up and goes viral. But I'm like, okay, like be our mouthpiece because people have got to hear this.
People won't hear until the greater society won't hear it until the white male says it. That's the way it is. And I respect the men who do it because they're not respected by the other men. They are not. Dr. Stu, people hate him. Like, literally hate him. But he keeps talking, and he keeps talking on behalf of birthing people and women and their babies. So God bless you, Dr. Stu. Priscilla, are you able to speak? Or are you eating?
Sorry, I'm eating. Was there something you wanted to ask?
wanted to ask you a question. I wanted to ask you, in what I'm talking about, how it felt for you in the room with all that going on around you as my assist.
Um, I think we're both at the level of frustration. Um, with like them not allowing the client, or like them not even listening to the client or her needs. I was at the time when everybody was talking at the client, it was very frustrating for me, but I also felt confident in sitting back because I already saw you get up and I was like, oh, she got it. So I just kind of feel like, okay, I don't have to worry about this because Samsara's already up on her feet. But I want to say, and as much as I have empathy and, you know, sympathy and all that for her, I want to say a huge part of my frustration was heading towards grandma. Um, because I was just like, you are not doing anything to help, and yet you would not allow the people who are doing the things to help to do what they need to do. And you're literally physically putting yourself in this in the space. It's okay for a mother to want to hold and touch her child, and I'm not against that. Do that. Be supportive. But if you're in your child's face and then like all of a sudden start panicking and crying and like you should just do this. I think the moment that really upset me the most was when she said, there are benefits to the C-section anyway. And I was like, what benefits? Like, what are you talking about in this moment? Um, and then she said, oh, you should have planned the C-section to start with in the beginning. That was very frustrating for me because I was like, even if this is how you feel, you can see that your child is really, really hell bent on doing this. Like, this is what she wants. She needs your support, not your critique. It's like because I think maybe my most of my frustration was going towards her because I expected the doctors to do what they do. I expected the medical people to be the way they are, but I was hoping for more support from mom, and that was not there, and that really threw me off more. But this is why it's great to work in teams, because in the moment when Samsara was doing what she was doing, I could gather myself and be like, okay, it's not about you. You need to be in the moment and like support the best way you can. Yeah, that's what I'll say to that.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. I'd love to hear from other folks. How about you, Kia?
Hi. Just listening in, it did make me like wonder about the part with the mom, the grandma, grandma. And just hearing that, like, oh my goodness, it makes me think of what I do when it's my daughter's turn, you know, and it that would teach me of a better way to support them when it's their turn, you know. Just having the knowledge that I have now, it makes me know that I can go in and be a better grandmother or a better mom. You know, and that's helpful just to see and hear how other moms, you know, sometimes because I guess you're scared too, because that's your baby laying there. It is all, you know, and just having the knowledge, because I wonder how I would have acted if I wasn't a doula and didn't have like this knowledge already, and how I would behave and how I would have behaved, given that, you know, not really being knowledgeable. So it's helpful to know, you know, what I know now moving forward. And I'm grateful to that because I don't want to.
I appreciate that. That is beautiful. That is very powerful what you said. I really appreciate that. You know, I think it's important for us to remember that patriarchy wins when the mothers don't stand up for their children. Your daughter or son comes to you and says, somebody molested me, and you blame the child,
Mhm.
as opposed to going after and seeking to deal with what actually happened.
Mhm.
When your child is being raped by the medical system, telling your child that let's lay down and have a cesarean, like let's lay down and let them have you. That's how I see that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we have to, in different ways, African American women have to do it in one way because we were forced to let our daughters get raped. We were forced to know that was going to happen to them and just help them get through it. Just toughen up because that's what he's going to do. Right. And we get to decide that we're not going to raise our children like that anymore.
Yeah. 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 I would 100% want to be there just to help them get through that and to know that that's not okay and to be a voice and still be able to hold their hand and advocate and know that that's wrong. And I wouldn't want that. So I'm so thankful to have all the knowledge that I have now. You know,
It's so beautiful for a mother to be able to tell her daughter how amazing she is.
yeah,
Body's amazing, girl. You can do it. I'm gonna be cheering you. I'm gonna be feeding you yogurt and singing songs to you, and you're gonna birth my grandchild. Thank you.
yeah, yes,
Much more powerful story.
yes. Yeah.
So, Kathleen, do you want to say anything?
Um, oh, I hate hospitals. And oh my God, they're all dogs. And and I think it's really I think so many things. I'm really glad that you and Priscilla were there. And in the moment, that you had, like Jesselyn said, you know, in this practice, in your practice, you're meeting with clients many times. And so you build a relationship and you build trust, and that's really vital. That's really essential to the work that we do, so that in a moment of overwhelm, you could help the mom think, help the mom come back, center herself, help the mom like be able to have some time for her tears and block out all of the abusive noise. And it's just, then I'm just thinking it's just so challenging when we don't have that. But I appreciate Jesselyn's reflection. Thank you, Jesselyn, about like, okay, but if we weren't there at all, then like how much worse might it all be? Yeah. There's just so much stuff that goes on that doesn't have anything to do with the person who's laboring and giving birth. Doesn't have anything to do with the wellness of the baby. It's other people's SHIT. It's that doctor's fear. It's that nurse laughing at her requesting half an hour. Like what is that nurse seeing that she is that cynical?
Yeah.
And this doctor's like incredible fear and discomfort, and the grandma's discomfort, like yeah.
Yeah. None of that is about the client.
Yeah.
None of that is about the baby.
Yeah. And so holding that sacred, you know, being the one, no matter what, like that is the doula's role, is holding the birthing person and holding their baby and like helping them to reground and find that. And I think that that's beautiful that you put your hands over her ears. Like just you telling the story, I'm like, feeling anxious because I put myself in that room with all those people and they're all talking to her. And I'm like, you're telling the story. And I'm like, ugh. And then you're like, and so I went over and I put my hands on her ears and I'm like, okay, thanks, I'm sorry. Because man, it's just like so not conducive. Then you think of like, yeah, sphincters closing up again. Like, yeah, I'm not going to have a baby with everybody yelling at me and spewing all of their upset. Like, that's not going to help anybody have a baby.
What is with this?
Yeah. So thank you for being the example to all of us and a reminder of like staying grounded. What we can do, staying grounded, being that gentle, grounded voice in the birthing person's ear. Like even when all the doctors are doing all these things and all the shenanigans and you get up right, like that, something I know that you've taught me, you get up right in the client's, next to the client, right in their ear. And you are just that calm, grounded love. That's at the heart of what we're doing. Yeah. So I'm going to keep that one. I'm going to keep the hands over the ears. I'll put that in my pocket.
Use it with God's grace, you know? I would love to hear a bit from Yes and Shawana before we go. So I'm sorry that we're at the end, but I do want to hear everybody's voice. So who'd like to go first? Shawana, want to go first?
Yeah, sure, I could go. I second that. Hand over the ears. I'm adding that to my tool belt. It just really made me think of our role in High Watch. And we really have High Watch, and we have been trusted to have that, being invited into the space. And so being tapped into that and checking into that, because our clients have given us permission to do that and take the lead in moments of that. And just also it made me think about when you talked about the folks in the room, just the frequency and the energy of folks in the room can shift a lot of things, and reminding folks of that, even in the education sessions that we do, but even in the room, and how we can shift energy with our energy alone. Like it's not just words, but those fears resonate, and we know, and doctors, there's plenty of, just by the placebo experiment, we know that there's so much power in the mind. So even if you're not a spiritual or magical or whatever kind of person, if you're a scientific person, placebos have been proven to be a thing. And so to know that and understand that, to remember that there's power in what we think. And so we have to also hold high watch of what people are thinking in the space, and being able to shift through that and name that and call that out, even if you feel it in your body. And then the last thing I'll say about it is it makes me think about the work I've done for so many years as a mental health therapist for children and families, and reuniting children back with their families, and the things that start in the womb that then when we're dealing with the 7 and the 8-year-old and they're hitting, kicking and screaming, and we don't know why. Well, because the trauma had happened before they had language. And we know that that is a thing. And sometimes that trauma has happened to the parent while the baby was in utero. And now they're trying to express a pain that they can't even name. And so, like, we're on such a preventative end of a trajectory of mental health issues, of ACEs, of things that really impact generations to come. And so it's just really an honor to be in integrity, to actually know the power we hold in these spaces as a doula to support these clients in this way from a very actually loving integrity gift, really a gift to do. So
Thank
yeah.
you for that. That is definitely one of the key things, that we are not just the advocates for the mother, we are the advocates for that child. And what all the other baloney, because they haven't done the studies yet. We know the way babies are born is a benefit to the baby. The baby squeezing through the mother's birth canal turns on the baby's brain, turns on the baby's lungs, turns on the baby's digestion, gets the baby ready to be a little person, a little human outside of its mother's body, start its little life. And we know that there are ramifications when it's done differently. And so it shouldn't be done differently unless you literally have to save a life. You have
Right.
to save a life, then you do what you got to do, but then you clean up. Then you go to cranial sacral, right? Then we make sure that mom breastfeeds. Okay. Yes, let me hear from you.
Thank you, Mama Sansara. So I think you did what you felt in that moment that would help your client to get centered again and go back to her and prove to her that she was in charge of that situation and don't get impacted by the how can I say that, from the bad recommendations from the young doctor, and you didn't have to raise your voice or get angry of them. Just, I think you were like very brave, because if it was me, it would be hard. But go ahead, sorry.
No. I was just saying I was angry, but
Yes.
I channeled that out the bottom of my feet so that I can do what needed to be done. Because I was like, everybody get off her, you bullies. You're big bullies.
Because we don't want to get like more bad vibes to that situation. We don't want to add one more fight and make that situation to be about us. We want to solve the problem. We want to make like the calm environment on again. So I think that was very nice from you. And I think that helps for sure, something inside her. And another thing that it was maybe a lesson for me is maybe I should add one more prenatal for my package, because I always do, no matter what, like if the client need it, but I don't charge for it, and I don't say that I want to do it. I don't promise anything like beforehand. But yes, if the clients tell me, oh, Thais, I think we're gonna have to get induced for some reason, and I said, no, let me stop by one more time. Let's for sure try some exercises and something else to see if it helps before we agree for anything more like drastic. But I think I should be more clear that help will be available for them, and like even like just if I can go in person, just virtual or something. But I do feel that's going to be important to add one more official prenatal meeting.
So let me say that if you're operating as a member of this practice has what, 5, it- sometimes more meetings with clients before the baby's born. So we'll talk about that to make sure that everybody's doing that process, because that process prepares our clients the best. We don't, when the doctor talks to them about being induced, they already know what that is because we talk to them about it before the doctor. We don't let them be any, but one of the things that has my clients have trusted me is that, oh, Samsara told us they were going to try to have us be induced. So that helps them to decide what they feel about that. And if they're going to push back, they are able to push back. They're not surprised with what the doctor says first, and then I'm coming in afterwards trying to change it. It's not effective.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So everybody was given the PowerPoint. Everybody should be using the PowerPoint. PowerPoint has chapters, so you can handle 1 or 2 subjects each time you go see your client. By the time you go through that whole PowerPoint with your client, they are prepared. They have everything they need to know. And then they're
Yes.
going to do what they're going to do, but at least you know you've already told them. Yeah. Make sense?
Yes, it does. I do feel that I cover a lot with them. I just don't, I never think about explain like induction before,
With
just because I don't
everybody's
want
everybody's being offered an induction, so we have to
to.
talk.
Yeah, it's just because like if it not, yeah, sometimes I just don't want to add one more thing for them to worry about. I
That's,
don't know if they would be like scared or
that's
maybe
not
that would help.
our job is to give them complete informed consent. That means we tell them everything, because the doctors tell them nothing.
Yes, definitely.
And they don't have to worry about it. Being information is power. It's not a worry.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, it is past time. I really appreciate hearing all of your voices.
So I'm sorry. Can I say one more thing? I'm sorry. I think one of the biggest things that also stood out to me, and it was a bother for me, was, and I've noticed it in other clients, like clients' births and stuff, is this this idea of like, oh, if things change, just be okay with it. You're not allowed to feel the grief of it. That was a big problem, even with this birth, because the moment they mentioned the C-section and she started having any kind of emotion towards it, everybody around the bed was like, it's okay. You did the best you could. You tried. You did really great. Like, she's not allowed to feel any kind of sadness towards that. And I think that's a very big thing that us as doulas have to stand up for, because I do remember feeling like I want to go over there and say you're allowed to feel your feelings, and then I remember you saying you're allowed to feel your feelings, and I was like, oh, I don't have to go there and do that. But it's like them knowing, like clients knowing that they're allowed to feel disappointed by the way things are going, and then like take a moment to feel that and then make the best decision for them. It's fine. That's not there. That's not some horrible thing that's like, oh, we have to change routes. I have to man up and accept it and just move on. Feel your feels, feel how you feel about it, and then make your decision. I just wanted to put that up there. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Priscilla. This is one of the things that allows people to not be traumatized. Being traumatized is a physiological state. Okay? Something really bad can happen to you, and you don't have to be traumatized by it. Something really bad can happen to you, but you're able to cry as much as you want. People didn't tell you to suck it up. You got to shake, You had all the energy move through your body from the event. People listen to you when you were talking about it, and you get to talk about it over and over and over until you don't need to talk about it anymore. If people are allowed to process things that happen to them that are bad, get it out of their body in a healthy way like that, it doesn't have to live in the body as trauma. The therapist will tell you that. So when the mom is disappointed, maybe she actually couldn't birth her baby. I believe this mom could, but maybe she couldn't. Maybe she had to accept having a cesarean. Her best healing is to cry. It's her very, very best healing. That's her getting ready to accept something that she did not want to accept. And then she can get to the point where she chooses it. And if she chooses it, that's the most powerful place to be. Not dragged around like by all these people, they're like yelling at this laboring woman, like no respect whatsoever. Anyway, thank you for that, Priscilla. It's a very, very good point. All of y'all made really good points because you're really bright ladies, and I'm honored to be your teacher and friend. Hopefully we will get together next week if I'm on call, so hopefully the baby won't get in the way. We will not be meeting on Christmas Day because I think we have other things to do. But I will be seeing you. Hopefully we'll see each other next week right before Christmas. So have a great week.
Thank you. Good
Welcome.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Nighty night.